And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Doubting Thomas monthly recap for June of 2023. And joining me is my co-host, Mr. Cliff. Cliff, how you doing this evening, this afternoon, this morning, whatever the hell time of day it is?
Does anyone really know anymore? Just when you're in
No.
the summer and yeah, it's just oh no, I'm doing all right. Yeah, unfortunately, we're recording a little bit later than I know we wanted to. Not in the day, but maybe a few days afterwards. And I'm this is something that no one will know unless they're actually like if we had a schedule that was posted. But yeah, my lower back just decided to not be my friend, and so I'm a recovering back pain
A back
person.
tweaker.
Back to yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to being old. It's kind of fun, isn't it?
Yay!
Yeah. So yeah, we're a couple of days late. It is currently July the 2nd. This year is half over. Can you believe that? I mean, it's like
More than half over.
flying. Yeah, well, by a couple of days.
Mm.
Yeah, it is like flying by like cray. But yeah, and we can use this as a good transition to talk about what's going to be happening in the month of July, which is to say, not a hell of a lot. So it is that time of year again when we are going to put the show on. See, in the past, when we put the show on hiatus, we did nothing. We just shut it down. We took a break. We walked away. We had a little vacay. And by we, I mean me, because Cliff wasn't as involved as he was in these days,
It's true.
for which we are thankful, by the way. But yeah, so we're actually going to put the show on hiatus. This is a planned, scheduled hiatus, not like the last one. The last one, man, just the freaking wheels fell off. It was crazy. But no, this is going to be for a month. Largely the reason for this hiatus is because as of July 13th, I will not be in my home for the rest of the month, basically. So just I think I don't think this is like really a secret, but I was lucky enough, fortunate enough, talented enough,
Yeah, there we go.
if I want to toot my own horn, to be selected. I don't know. Slash Gear asked me if I could attend Samsung Unpacked in South Korea, which is going to be extremely exciting on many levels. I mean, like, first of all, Samsung Unpacked is like one of the biggest, tech
Yeah.
events of the year. But I have also never traveled outside of North America before. So
Neither
like
have I. So that's very exciting for you. Yeah, definitely.
I crossed the border into Mexico once when I was like 12, and I have driven through the Wisconsin portion of Canada, which is I should give that a little context. When we were driving through Canada, it's a stretch in between like Detroit and Toronto, but like north of the lake. And like we were driving through it, and my wife's like, "Hey, we're in Canada." I'm like, "Yeah, looks like Wisconsin." So that's why I call it the Wisconsin portion of Canada. And it's like, who was it? We were talking. My last New York trip, someone was saying like that is like the most boring part of Canada is that particular stretch in between
Yeah, is
Michigan
that like
and Toronto.
Saskatchewan and that I was a picture it being sort of like the plains area, but maybe that's a little bit west.
No, it is very plainy. Very
Mm.
like 2-lane highway. And anyway, so I'll be so obviously Samsung's a big deal. Traveling internationally is a big deal. 34 hours on a plane for 96 hours on the ground. That's going to be great.
Oh,
um, so I've never been jet lagged before, so we're going to see how that goes. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. I imagine there will be some Patreon content coming from Samsung Unpacked. So
yeah.
patreon.com/benefit of a doubt. But anyway, so now in order to, and I know I'm talking a lot. I'll let Cliff talk in a second. But in order to kind of soften the blow, I guess, if you will, from us going on hiatus, Cliff and I have put together a few recordings that we're going to sprinkle out through the
Yeah.
month of July.
We're gonna spoon feed them to you
Yeah,
as the month goes on, and
just a little bit, just so to remind you that we still exist.
exactly.
But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on. And so yeah, so you won't hear from us, except you kind of will. I did pause Patreon billing for the month of July, so nobody's getting charged for a month where we're not working. Even though, like I said, we're kind of working. But anyway,
we'll be working, just not for our own podcast.
yeah. And I was hoping by the time we recorded this, I could brag that my first piece for Forbes had actually been published, but it hasn't yet. But it has been submitted, so there's that. So yeah, I'm a writer for Forbes now. That's exciting.
That's very exciting.
Yeah. I'm writing for a publication that was mentioned in Die Hard. So you can't nothing can go wrong there.
It'll be finalists as Christmas Eve.
Right. Yeah, I'll probably shy away on Christmas Eve.
Right.
But yeah. So, and with Forbes, kind of similar to what I'm doing with Slash Gear, just doing reviews and and various categories too, like not just mobile. So it's gonna be
that's also exciting, and I think as a freelancer, it's to your advantage to not have your eggs all in one basket.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. I'm working on increasing my number of baskets, just because I'm doing well at Slash Gear, but
baskets as far as the eye could see,
some things. But I mean, the problem with having multiple baskets is keeping those baskets straight, and that's what I'm very much slow rolling. So, you might see me in another publication before the end of the year. I would be kind of surprised if you didn't, but at the same time, Slash Gear and Forbes pay so well, it'll be really hard to find another publication that pays as well that I want to work for. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so the one thing that we wanted to kind of talk about, and so Twitter recently, in order to Elon passed it off as trying to prevent other websites from scraping data from Twitter, because Twitter's a real hotbed for personal information. But in order to prevent outside companies from scraping data from Twitter, a couple of things have gone into effect. And I don't know if the first one was because of this or not, but the second one definitely was. The first one is you can no longer view content on Twitter if you are not logged in with an account.
Interesting.
So if someone drops a link into a Slack or something like that to a tweet, if you are not logged into Twitter, you cannot see that content. Now, this is not strange. A lot of sites actually do this.
Yeah.
But a lot of sites also don't do this. And Twitter was one that did not do this up until a few days ago.
Well, it seemed like they always wanted you to be able to peruse the content as sort of a way to entice you to.
Right.
If you didn't have an account. And so, okay. I mean,
yeah,
I don't have any real opinions on that either way. It's just
so the real problem that I have with this is I'm no longer installing the Twitter app onto my phones. So if I'm on mobile and someone sends me a tweet link, I can't see it.
Oh, yeah, I can see how that would be a problem now that I think about it. Yeah.
So I could see it if I wanted to log into Twitter, or if I wanted to open it up in a browser and log into Twitter that way. But since Twitter recently, did they force 2FA, or they forced 2FA not by texting? So I have 2FA turned on, so it's an extra pain in the butt for me to log into a browser, especially if I'm just looking at a tweet that someone from work posted. So I guess I'm just not going to look at Twitter when I'm on my phone.
So essentially, you're just going to be logging in or viewing Twitter content even less than you were before.
On my computer. Yeah,
and I kind of wonder if that's going to be the result for a lot of people.
Yeah. And by the way, for those of you who haven't noticed, I am no longer on Twitter. I've changed my profile description to a QR code, which takes you to Linktree, which shows you the three other different ways that you can get a hold of me, which is, well, actually it's more than three. It's Instagram, LinkedIn, T2, Blue Sky, spoiler alert, that's what we're going to be talking about in a second. Anyway, that type of stuff. So it's basically my profile information for everywhere else except for Twitter. And I'm going to log into Twitter once per month just to troll Elon so that he doesn't shut down my account for being inactive.
Right.
So anyway, okay, so that was the first thing Twitter did. You can't read it without being logged in. The second thing that Twitter did was they started limiting the number of tweets that you can read per day. And they limited it to, I think it was like, I don't know, the numbers very Elon like kept fluctuating. Like, okay,
Right.
now we're gonna set it to 300. Now we're gonna set it to 600. Now we're gonna go back down to 400. Like, because like Elon is basically controlling Twitter with tea leaves at this point.
So,
Um,
so by that is he trying to push people to get verified and pay a certain amount, or is that even for people that are verified?
So, well, okay, so if you, I'm just going to use one set of numbers that I definitely saw yesterday.
Sure.
If you're not verified, it's limited to like 300 posts. If you're verified, it's limited to like 3,000 posts or something like that. And
I don't understand
because
the point of that. What?
it's to prevent companies from scraping data off of Twitter, I guess. So like if you're only allowed to see 300 posts at a time, then you can't scrape a whole bunch of data off of Twitter.
Right.
I guess is the theory. But whatever, dude. Like if anybody wants to scrape my tweets, I don't care.
This feels like a reaction to AI and like Chat GPT and
it could be. It could be. But anyway, so that was the other thing. And but I think what was happening was another thing that was happening, which I saw on, it was actually a Mastodon post. Let me see if I can find it because I didn't really understand it.
I'd forgotten all about Mastodon.
Yeah, well, I saw it's funny because again, we'll talk about T2 in a moment. But a lot of people on different social media platforms, like not Twitter, will post really long posts on Mastodon and then link to them. Shit. Sorry, I'm trying to log into my password manager. And I've got a webcam in the middle of my screen, so I can't really see what I'm typing.
That does make it a little more difficult, but that's the price we pay for having
good video. Yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So they posted on Mastodon a thread about how like Twitter was basically DDoSing itself. Because what was happening was people were trying to log in, and I guess people were looking at the code in order to see this. But people were trying to log in, or people were trying to view content on Twitter while they were not logged in. And as a result, like the Twitter website was putting itself into a loop, checking to see if someone was logged in, and if they weren't, they would check again, like in a tenth of a second later, and if they weren't, they would check again, like a tenth of a second later. And so it was basically like overwhelming its own servers, trying to check and see if people were logged in before it would display content.
Wow. Unforeseen consequences.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you fire everybody that literally knows anything about the platform. And so it was causing this error that was like rate limit exceeded. If you were on Twitter yesterday, which I know because I was on Twitter doing a couple of DMs, because Twitter is the only way that I can connect with people. Wow. Anyway, sorry, I'm looking for this tweet, and we are gonna talk about all this. Sorry, I keep like pushing this out, but anyway, I once again I lost my train of thought. So long story short, Twitter is kind of a cesspool, and it's breaking. And like the three trending topics on Twitter the other day were like R.I.P. Twitter, Elon Musk, and goodbye Twitter. So like
that's interesting. That's the first time I think I've ever seen Twitter be that self-referential, especially in a negative way.
Yeah, seriously. So I'm really looking forward to I forgot about this one. This is so cute. It's a picture on T2, and
Gotcha.
maybe I'll show it to you. Maybe we'll do a screen share of T2 while we're talking about it. But anyway, so that's the long and the short. Like basically, Twitter's a shithole, and we all knew that. So there's really
Yeah,
nothing new to report, unfortunately. But it's just a new flavor of stupid that is managing the site these days, and I
it's
can't find this post. So
it's
never
truly
mind.
over and over again. It feels like the very, very, very true to form with Elon, I guess, at times cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Yeah. Or just doing stuff because it sounds like a good idea and then changing your mind and then doing other things because it sounds like a good idea and then changing your mind again. It's
Right.
just it's the same bleh. It's the same stupid, it's the same big ball of stupid,
Yeah, it is.
basically. I
Yeah, and
mean
I'm
just
even though I have not, quit Twitter, I'm definitely not on it very much. That's for darn sure.
yeah.
Most of the time, it is usually if I receive a DM or if I just want to check to see if I have any mentions because I do have the Twitter client installed on my phone, but I am
Yeah.
not logging into it
Yep.
regularly.
Yep.
So, and to be honest, I think I'm just off. I'm not on social media as much as I was anyway. So, which I think for me is a
How do
good
you
thing.
feel about that?
Yeah, you know, uh, maybe a little bit less mental anxiety, or in terms of like feeling the need to check it all the time.
Oh, right. I hear you. I hear
Yeah,
you. So, all right. So let's talk about the thing that we actually, the thing that we actually wanted to talk about today. Um,
right.
so since I left Twitter and since Cliff kind of left Twitter,
Hmm.
um, we have been. Oh, by the way, 518. So, speaking of unhealthy habits, that's an inside joke. Nobody else will understand. Um,
It
so
was 5'10" the last time I looked. So
Oh, there you go. Anyway, so speaking of other social media networks, since I'm off of Twitter and since Cliff is mostly off of Twitter, we have both dipped our toes into a couple of different other platforms
Mhm.
that one of which you've probably heard of, the other of which honestly you probably haven't. But
Until now.
yeah, until now. So Cliff and I have both been poking around at Blue Sky, which is
Mhm.
the Twitter alternative that was built by Jack and a bunch of other former
Like
Twitter
Twitter
people.
expats, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also another one called T2.social, which is also built by a bunch of former Twitter people. And we've been kind of poking around at these two, and I think it's been not entirely surprising. Well, first of all, like it's kind of funny because both of these platforms have similar limitations. Like T2 doesn't have a mobile app right now. The
Right.
closest that you can do PWA that you could install.
Yeah, I just noticed that the other day. I installed. I moved into a phone, and it actually prompted me when I went to the T2
Yeah.
website to install the PWA, which I thought was a
Mhm.
great placeholder kind of thing.
It's a good half step.
Mhm.
Blue Sky does have an app, but Blue Sky is currently strictly on invitations, and actually so is T2.
Emails and they have a good sense of humor, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure.
Okay. So 9,200 people are on T2 right now, according to their latest email that was sent. They send out kind of like a state of T2 every week on Friday, which is kind of nice. Where they tell you like what your most engaged post was,
Right.
and they'll do fun things with your account. Like this last week, they wrote a haiku based on my profile, and the haiku is kind of funny. It says, "Tech Wizard speaks truth, podcast host and reviewer, bird free on the air," which I thought was kind of
Yeah,
funny.
their haikus have been very accurate, which I feel
Yeah.
bad because I have not been as active on T2 lately. Although I would actually in the last like 3 or 4 days I'm back on it, but I had been trying to engage on Blue Sky a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's
Blue
tough.
Sky.
It's tough. I feel like I'm serving 2 mistresses
Yeah.
while
Well,
shunning a third.
we should also talk about Mastodon a little bit. I
Mm,
tried Mastodon like I gave it a good week before I said no, this isn't for me. Um, and I don't know why. Like, there's nothing necessarily about Mastodon that isn't also reflected in something like a Blue Sky. Like Blue Sky has the same thing where you have to like
Yeah, the
pick a
decentralized.
domain
Yeah.
and you have to like, sign up under that domain and then you get a username based on that. And like it still does this decentralized thing, which I honestly don't understand what is so important about decentralization, except that it allows different people to be dicks in different ways. I mean, that really seems to be the only benefit to decentralization that I can find is, each different service or instance or whatever you want to call it has their own terms of service.
Right.
So basically they decide in what ways you can't be a dick. And then you have to work under those rules, and then you can like spread your dickishness through it wherever you want to go. Honestly, you could just not be a dick. I'm just gonna spitball this.
I feel like the idea of it is though that it is not one central company that is
deciding how you can be a
and
dick,
making decisions and eloning it up.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and,
I think Elon Musk is probably like the worst case scenario that can happen for a centralized company. So, like,
yes,
I mean,
yes,
this is kind of
yes,
like
it is.
Like Elon Musk taking over Twitter was like the selling point that decentralized networks need to like sell the concept of decentralization. Under our concept, you won't have an Elon Musk ever. Well, yeah, I guess, but
yeah,
it seems to be a loose a loose way of
decentralized everything is sort of the buzzword, whether it's cryptocurrency or now social networks, and I'm sure that there are other instances of that I also don't care about.
Yeah, and I get the idea that you don't want to have just one entity in charge of everything, especially in the case of Twitter, where one person can
as we've seen,
wholeheartedly take over the entire, like, Twitter is supposed to be a corporation. Like, Twitter is supposed to be, 1,000 people all deciding like, various things, but Twitter is really just one person.
I mean, use the analogy of like, I know that there are probably people that listen to our podcast that weren't using Twitter or had never used Twitter, and so are wondering why we're spending so much time talking about Twitter alternatives, right?
Yeah.
But just imagine if you love McDonald's and Elon Musk bought McDonald's and decided that hamburgers were unhealthy for you.
Yeah. And all you can eat from now on, the only thing McDonald's will serve is a McShrimp.
Exactly.
Everybody in the world was just like, what do you mean I can't have hamburgers?
Right, exactly. You're McDonald's.
Yeah, and no.
And then on top of that, he changed it to McX.
Right. It's no longer McDonald's, it's McX. You can only eat a McShrimp. Or you can order a hamburger, but if you don't pay extra for the hamburger, our employees will spit in it.
Right.
In front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking like, well, that's silly. Nobody would ever eat there, except it's McDonald's.
Exactly.
Like, that's
the Happy Meals are no longer happy. Everyone just comes with a poorly made Tesla toy.
Yeah. And when you reach out to take your tray, they just hit you in the fingers with a hammer. Like it's
some days half of the McDonald's are closed.
Yeah. And like I said at the near the beginning of this, I routinely have to go to Twitter for work because that is where a lot of news breaks still. And so like a lot of people will post in our Slack room, like, here's a link to a thing that's happening, and I'll need to click on that to go see what it is. So like I can't not do Twitter, but at the same time, I'm very much so I basically like, I don't want to say bifurcated because I don't think that's right. Like I've trifurcated my
Right.
my content posting to T2, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. Actually, LinkedIn has been an interesting experience. I'll be honest. I've always been on LinkedIn,
Me too.
but I haven't
Yeah.
really actively posted on LinkedIn. I've commented and stuff like that, but like doing posts is kind of weird.
What
But
I have found is that the more active you get on LinkedIn, the more spam you get spammed.
oh, that could be. That
Oh
could
my
be.
goodness. It's
Um,
ridiculous. Anyway.
yeah. So like I use LinkedIn primarily to like stay in contact with like fellow journalists and PR people. Like,
Yeah. And I mean
that's kind of
I feel like for a lot of reasons that's probably why, or similar reasons that's why I'm still on Twitter.
yeah, is to
And
stay in contact with people.
exactly because you and I have been on. I mean, I've been on Twitter since 2007,
Yeah,
and and
2009 is when I joined.
and I didn't use it probably until 2009 until I started getting into I was going to say smartphone culture, but really at the time it was WebOS.
Yeah, WebOS
Uh,
culture.
right, and that was a strongly knit community that was mostly connected on Twitter, and so
Hmm.
I still talk to some of those people, and so yeah, I mean, there's a reason that I'm still coming back to it, even though, my God, so many people have left or are just not active on it anymore.
Right.
So, do you want to talk about some of the alternatives that we've explored?
Yeah. So yeah, we've been kind of like
Yeah.
sprinkling in things or not. So I would say let's start with Blue Sky.
Okay.
Blue Sky is a kind of sort of decentralized
Right.
social network. I think they're centralized right now, but they have plans to eventually offload and decentralize because
I,
when you get a Blue Sky account, you still have the at bloody blah at bloody blah after your name.
yeah.
So
At
like
bluesky.social is I think what it
yeah,
is right now.
but I think the default right now is that everybody is, or not everybody, but like unless you specifically say otherwise, you're going to be
Right.
.bluesky.social. Blue Sky is currently in invite only mode. I know they have a wait list, but I don't think they're actively really turning on people from the wait list.
In fact,
So
they
because
just shut it down yesterday temporarily as far as
okay,
sending invites out because and I'm thinking it has something to do with what we were discussing before. There was a mass influx of people signing up for Blue Sky, or or that were receiving invites,
okay,
and I don't know if their servers just weren't up to the task, or if maybe they want to slow roll it, and they kind of went, whoa, let's pump the brakes a little bit based on the performance of it, or just maybe try to figure out things. I don't know, but so right now I don't
yeah.
think you can get an invite.
Right. So, Blue Sky has, I think I saw, I don't know how accurate this is, but it's 180,000 users, something like that. And there's over 1.9 million people on the wait list to
Wow.
join.
Huh. That's
Again, I don't know.
massive compared
I
to
don't know how active
right.
how accurate those numbers are, but
I I can imagine that not being off by much. I mean,
yeah,
considering.
there's a lot of people on Blue Sky. Some of the more notable people on Blue Sky include like Weird Al Yankovic,
Hmm.
an astrologist, astrophysicist that I follow. Katie Mack is on there. James Gunn is on there.
I
They're all
saw that.
very active. I'm trying to think of like who else. Like a lot of tech journalists have migrated over to there. Miriam Joire is on there, and I think Michael Fisher's just joined
Michael
recently.
Fisher is on. Dieter Bohn is
Um,
on there, although he's technically not a tech journalist anymore.
right, true. Marquez Brownlee is
Right.
on there.
I think most of the people from Marquez's group are on there now.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, like, so there are some notable people there. It currently runs on an invite system. You get an invite every 2 weeks that you're on the platform. So like after 2 weeks, you can send out a code to somebody and they can use that to sign up. It works very much like Twitter. The big difference here is that there are no DMs on Blue
Currently,
Sky
yeah.
yet. So that's kind of it's not a terrible thing. But you get notifications for like when people. Oh, Ricky Cadden's on there. I like
Yep.
him.
Yep.
So you get like notifications when people, like your stuff or reply to you. It's very
I mean,
Twitter's.
I think both platforms that we're going to discuss are definitely very Twitter-esque. I mean,
Yeah,
Twitter inspired, I think is the way to say it. But they're also relatively new,
right.
and so
They're
they're just not as fleshed out with. I mean, which to some extent is kind of refreshing because
mhm.
Twitter. I forever had been using Twitter third-party clients until they, like many things that Elon Musk has done, he shut that off, shut that
Right.
pipe off, and so I was forced to use the Twitter official app, Twitter client, and oh my god, it's so full of cruft and ads and just extra things that I don't want, like the here's posts from people we think you'll like versus people that you follow, and it's
Oh,
too
right.
much. There's so much noise, and so whether it's Blue Sky or it's T2,
Yeah.
both of those are just part of that too is that I'm following way less people,
Yeah. Well, that's
and
true. And
but
and so let's use
it's
this.
simpler.
Yeah, it is simpler. And let's use this excuse to transfer over to T2. T2, like I said, has like 9,200 users as of last Friday. But what's funny is like and it's funny because this is like one of my most liked posts ever. But I posted on T2. I said T2 feels like a group of people who have all come together because we know this really tiny, obscure little secret, like a duck's quack doesn't echo or something like that, that no one else would care about,
Right.
but we know it, and so we're here for it.
And the duck's quack is beautiful.
Like so it's almost like people have discovered like the secret little corner of the internet that like
It
nobody
is.
cares about and nobody knows about, but we're like totally okay with that. And like it's funny because T2 has I recently have started calling it T2 versus Blue Sky. It's 1/10 the users but 10 times the engagement,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it just seems like everybody's like really into stuff that's on like each
Yeah.
other's posts basically.
I feel like with Blue Sky right now, yes, it has a lot more. Technically, it has more users, but I feel like so many of those people are just using it as a parachute for Twitter in
Right.
the case that it gets again so awful that they just can't use it. Right. So I think if you're talking about active percentage of users,
Yeah.
T2 definitely it definitely feels more engaged. Although, just very quickly going back to Blue Sky, one thing that I have seen that some people are very into is I guess threads or like let's just say you're really into photography. There's like little communities within that where you can follow.
Oh,
I don't know, somehow you follow the posts, but anyway, so you can sort of tree out, get down to like a smaller, like a
huh.
little community of people. That's something that people seem to be enjoying and talking about.
Really?
Um,
Okay. Okay.
I can't think of her
I
name.
haven't gotten into that at all.
Jen Gentleman, who is a Microsoft software engineer who works on Windows. It's like specific portions of Windows, but who is a delightful follow, by the way.
Oh, is she on Blue Sky?
She's on Blue Sky, yeah,
Oh,
and she's
really?
very
Okay.
active on it. So, but she's been, I guess she's into cat pictures and floral pictures, and she's
Well, who isn't? Um,
so that's how but yes, I think I'm sorry to interrupt you, but before, but yeah,
no, you're fine.
I
Yeah.
think yeah, I'd say the percentage of people once again that are engaged in and coming back to the platform versus the total amount users is very high on T2.
Yeah. And this is one thing that the decentralized network has. It's kind of like a hallmark of being a decentralized network. But when you just said that, when you said Jen Gentleman is on Blue Sky, and I'm like, oh really? I should go follow her because I enjoy following her on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
So like I jumped into search and typed out like Jen Gentleman and got no results. And so I said, oh, okay. Well, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Clifton and I looked at
Right.
his list of following people, and I found her in there, and from there I was able to follow her. And it's just like that's one of the big things about a decentralized network, or at least it seems to be one of the big things, because this was true on Mastodon as well. You can't find anybody.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, it's very true.
it's very discoverability is a major freaking problem
Right.
on Blue Sky. Like
That
I have a shorter following list on Blue Sky than I do on T2, even though arguably there are more people on Blue Sky that I would be interested in following than on
it's very
T2.
true. And T2 actually actively pushes, as like a
New
tab, new
users.
users, right? So then, and then I do that all the time. I follow people just because I'm looking for new and interesting people to follow, and
Yeah.
based on what their profiles are, we'll follow them. And yes, that is exact what you're talking about with Blue Sky is absolutely the case. How I have followed the majority of the people that I follow is from going through
Other people's profiles.
and looking to see who they follow and adding those people.
It's like word of mouth, except you shouldn't have to word of mouth this.
Right.
Like, and that's one of the biggest issues that I've had with
that is interesting,
yeah.
though, right? So then Blue Sky definitely is farther along in terms of having a mobile app.
Yes,
On
because they
both- on both iOS
have a
and-
mobile app.
Right. You know what? But if you remember right, Twitter was originally just a web app.
Yeah, well, Twitter was originally a SMS service
Yeah,
before
that's
it was
right.
even
That's
a
right.
web
It
app.
was. I remember Biz Stone talking about that when he was a guest on a nightly talk show. I think it was Conan. But yeah, that was really interesting. The really early days of Twitter and
You know,
like the purposing
yeah.
of it versus yeah. So yeah, that's
No,
very true. So like
yeah.
so I guess on the community aspect in general, it feels like T2 is much more not just the people that are engaged, but also in terms of the user interface and things like that. They're T2 is actually actively pushing you to learn
To be more active.
right.
And yeah, you're right. It seems like people are logging into Blue Sky just to claim their username,
Right.
just for when Twitter actually does burn to the ground. And by the way, we are still praying for Twitter to burn to the ground. But whereas with T2, it seems like people are there to actively get away from Twitter and to connect with a new community of people.
Right.
And I don't know how T2 did that. Now, I know what originally brought me into T2. They actively reached out to me and said,
Really?
"Hey, yeah." They said, "Hey, you're about to lose your blue check on Twitter because everybody's gonna lose their blue check on Twitter. But if you want to be verified on our platform, come on over. We'll verify you because you were already, legacy verified."
Right.
And then now, like the idea of being verified, I guess it was kind of a draw. Like, if I'm being truly honest, like, I don't care about my blue check mark on Twitter. I never have. Blue check mark isn't for me. A blue check mark is for everybody who wants to talk to me.
Right.
So
and more for your journalist side than
right,
personal.
right. And so, like, when they reached out and said, if you want to have a blue check mark over here, you can, you can sign up this way. I basically signed up with the intention of parking my account. Like, yeah, this is me. I'm verified.
Like we've all done for Mastodon, like we've done for T2, and like
right.
a lot of people have done with Blue Sky. Sure, I get that part. Yeah.
Right. So that was like my original intention. But like in the notifications area, for the longest time, and they've separated it out now. But like originally, and you have to understand, like I was in the first 1,000 people to sign up to T2. So like yeah, I think we both were.
I'm like 878 or something like that.
I'm 4 something. But during that time, when you got notifications, you didn't only get notifications from people that followed you and people that reposted or liked your stuff, but you also got notifications of new people joining T2. And like what Cliff was saying, like now it's a separate tab where if you go to your notification list and increase engagement. So like I basically started following anybody who had any interest in tech, basically.
Me too. Yeah.
And so like, but that was like part of your active notification. So it was just like it was kind of hard to get away from.
I'm glad that they have bifurcated that into its own little corner of T2 because it made sense when there were less than 1,000 users and
Sure.
They were trying to encourage community, and frankly, your timeline was just not that filled with posts, and so
Mm-hmm.
it helped, and I mean, yeah, I will also say that again with them, as you mentioned before, they're very, I guess you could say transparent, but also like actively engaged with
Yes.
interacting through email with their users.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but two, they seem to be very responsive to uh, the the users in terms of what they like and what they don't like, and reach out to them actively to see like how
Right.
and they also
How
like
can we improve
how
this?
can
And
we
like,
improve
yeah.
how and here's the state of the union. Let's do little fun things like the haiku based on your profile
Mm-hmm.
and your posts. I don't know what you call. I don't remember what T2's.
They don't have a name for them. They just call them posts at the
Okay,
moment. And I saw something recently that said something like, I guess T2 is not the final name for this.
I can see
Like,
that.
I
Yeah,
think they're trying to land on some different branding. And like they said that they'll determine what posts are called once they land on what the final branding is going to be. Like, I think T2 is fine.
I just don't
But
like their logo personally. It's too cartoonish and
yeah,
childish, and
it is a
eh,
bit. Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah, and I could see how that would offend your designer's sensibilities. But yeah, I and like real quick, why don't we just go ahead and take this opportunity? I'm just going to do a quick screen share because I've
yeah.
got this adorable meme on my screen right now. That how do I do? Oh, just hit. Okay, yeah,
Share
we
down on the bottom.
screen. I understand. Let's proceed. And I just want to so like and I'll do this for for
Blue Sky as well.
Blue Sky as well. But so here's like what T2 looks like. This is my profile, and this like little string of icons here, this is string of emojis, is basically another one of those things that T2 does, where they generated a string of emojis based on your profile. So I copied and pasted those into my profile. But anyway, I just wanted to show you this little meme. Darth Wombat is a great follow. I don't know
Yes,
if
he
you're
is.
following,
Yeah,
but so
he's also on Twitter.
oh,
Not
is he?
Twitter, but on
Okay,
Blue
yeah,
Sky. Yeah, but on Twitter, yeah.
yeah. So it's like there's a little penguin looking at a scientist that says hello, and when you skip, yes, I would like to learn. I would like to science, please. It's just so adorable, and like all the scientists are like looking at the penguin and laughing. It's funny, but anyway.
Oh, penguins.
Yeah, penguins. So let's just go to the home feed here real quick. And the one thing that we haven't said about T2 and Blue Sky is a major hobby on both of those platforms is dunking on Twitter.
Especially you.
And by the way, a major hobby on Twitter is dunking on Twitter as well these days.
I think a major hobby of Twitter seems to be dunking on itself.
Right, exactly.
Not necessarily, but with what they say, but with their actions.
But anyway, so this one is a dunk on Twitter. Dead Twitter is a popular hashtag on T2. And there's a lot of this is a really bad example because like all of these posts here that I'm scrolling through are all just dunking on Twitter.
Oh yeah, well I love the also dunking on Reddit as far as
Right.
third party clients are concerned.
Right.
They really do seem to now be in a race to the bottom, Twitter and Reddit, in terms of pissing off their community.
Right. And then here's a thing about threads on Instagram. But you can see like this is a very Twitter feel here. So you've got the post, you've got the pictures. By the way, neither Blue Sky nor T2 supports GIFs yet.
I was about to say that. That is a major missing thing for me, although I'm sure for some people they're
yeah,
tired of animated GIFs. I like to communicate in animated GIFs.
I do too. and I will say, like some days my animated GIF game is quite on point.
Oh yes.
Anyway,
you and I definitely have the fun.
Yeah, but you can see like there's the buttons down here. This is like to reply. This is to repost or whatever you want to call it.
Gideon is actually a T2 employee, is he not?
Yeah, he is. He's I think he's a QA tester. Oh, VP of
brand
oh no,
Gideon
Gideon is not. Gideon is not. He's with Dolby Labs. That's right.
Okay.
But yeah, there are a lot of people whose names are just their first name, like because
Right.
they were like one of the early ones to
Super
sign up.
early. I kind of wish
Yeah.
I'd claimed Clifton now,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's
you know
my
what?
brand.
I thought about doing Adam, but Adam Molina ended up getting it
Hmm.
after I signed up to T2. Adam Molina from the MKBHD group signed it,
Right.
and I'm like, if anybody got Adam, I'm glad it was you. So, but yeah, I am Dead Technology on there as well.
Just maintaining that brand consistency.
Yeah, but I mean, you can kind of see if you're watching this, if you're listening to the high quality, then sorry, but you can see this is a very Twitter-ish kind of
Oh
layout.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Reply, the
yeah,
equivalent of retweet and like,
right,
and then
and then
also bookmark.
report on the
Oh, is
end
that
there.
report? Okay.
I believe so. Yeah,
Report
report
this
this
post.
post.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I have not
And
used that.
so you don't have bookmarks. You don't actually have a list of likes yet, which I thought was kind of weird. So there's no way in T2 to
Oh, that's
view
interesting.
posts
So
that you have
you've
previously
got
liked.
the Twitter legacy
Yeah.
verification. Now, if you don't mind, just go to mine so I can show you the difference.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
actually there. It is right there. T2
Oh.
authenticated, which is me, versus Twitter legacy, which is you.
Hmm.
So that was an interesting experience for me. They were in the same way I think that they were pushing Twitter legacy authentication for getting new users, that as a way you could also by speaking to someone and basically verifying with an ID, you could also become verified on T2. But
Mm.
unlike Twitter, which I guess you can do when you're a relatively small company, as it was at the time, I assume it's still this way. But you just filled out an email form that went to a Google Calendar, and you scheduled a time
Oh really?
to me. Yes, literally a video, a Google
Meet.
a meet. Yeah.
So wait,
With
you talked to somebody at T2 to
I
verify that
did.
you were
I did.
really?
And
Oh, that's interesting.
she was coming out of a Safeway.
Oh really? Was it Sarah by chance?
It was Sarah, yes.
Okay, yeah, because she's the one I talked to about doing the Twitter legacy thing as
Right.
well.
Yeah. So Sarah and I had a scheduled time, and it was literally the last available slot of the day. It was 5:30 p.m. my
That
time.
is
So
such a trip.
I
Wow.
know. And so she was, I guess she was running a little late.
Yeah.
And so I just, sent her a message on T2 saying, "Hey, I'm here, I'm ready." And then almost immediately she
That's
got
awesome.
onto Google Chat or Google Meet, and that was just really funny because she was literally like, you could see her walk. She got in her car, and she was on her way to an event for T2 Social, like a you remember what was it, meetup.com?
They did a meetup, like a pizza meetup, like
Yes.
a few weeks into their T2 thing, where they
And that's
like
what
met.
she was on. That's what she was on her way to. She was getting stuff from Safeway to go to that.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I just, the point being, story aside, that at least for now, you like literally hold up your ID to someone and say, "Yes, this is me."
Okay, that's funny. So I'm glad I didn't have to do that.
And you're
honestly.
interacting with someone.
So
yeah.
all right, so let's switch over to Blue Sky. And the Blue Sky, you can see very similar. They've got these tabs up at the top there, following what's hot and popular of friends. I don't really delve into these all that much.
That's actually very similar, more similar to Twitter.
Yeah,
terms of having, which I think for now works for me, just because again I just don't follow that many people, and so it's a good way for me to go and find other content.
Right. And so you can same deal here, cat memes, and there's Jen Gentleman. Now the one thing I've noticed, and I don't know if T2, I think T2 does this as well, but if like on Twitter, if somebody replies to something, you only see that reply if you're following both of the people in that thread. So if A replies to B, you only see that if you're following both A and B. Right. So on Blue Sky, and I think on T2 as well, that's not the case. So if like I see a lot of Katie Mack replies and James Gunn replies to a lot of different questions from people that I am not following, so I don't necessarily care. But
there's definitely more noise.
There's a little
Blue
bit.
Sky.
Yeah. There's a little bit more noise, but I can also kind of see the
I think it's
um
again just encouraging interaction.
I think it's to encourage interaction and also to like, if Jen Gentleman feels a need to reply to
Right.
this person, maybe you will too,
Right. I think that's actually happened with me several times. So.
Yeah, it probably has. It probably has with me. But I mean, you can also see like a similar kind of layout here. Here's the replies. Here's the reposts. Here's the likes, and then I'm not sure what. There's a few more replies over here where you can translate and copy
Right.
the post text, and you can share. Apparently, these are supposed to be called skeets, but I
Oh
don't know
no.
anybody who calls
Oh
them
no.
skeets.
No, don't call them skeets.
So yeah. But like as you can see, it's very similar to posts you have liked. I could be wrong by that. Hang on, let me go to my.
I don't actually know. I have
Oh, there we
definitely.
go. Yeah,
Okay.
no likes here either. So posts and
Maybe I'll do a
replies.
thing here. Maybe I won't.
But Weird Al Yankovic. Did I say Al Yankovic? I think I did. I think I did
Yes,
say
you
Weird
did.
Al Yankovic was
Yeah,
on
I
here.
saw that you followed him too, doing the
Yeah.
thing to. Oh, I'm so happy. One of your posts, I saw that. What was it? Gear Patrol purchased the camera site from Amazon.
Yeah,
DP
that was
review.
cool.
DP
That was
review.
cool. DP
Yeah.
review. Yeah. So
So
that
glad
will
because
be
I have been reading them for years. But the point being, it's just again, if you want, I do actually feel like for tech news, Blue Sky at least right now is better.
probably.
Just because of the amount of people that are on it.
Right. And actually the number of publications that are on. It's a
Right.
weekend now, so we're not getting a lot of the the 9 to 5 stuff and the tech crunch stuff and whatnot. So I wonder how far I can scroll down here. So you got here from Twitter. That's funny. And like here's some James Gunn stuff. I love exclusive posts on Blue Sky. Please keep them coming. Will do. Like, all right, that's not really very engaging stuff. But anyway, so yeah, there are more publications on here. Like Fast Company is on T2. That's like the major one that I follow over there. But that's really okay. So here's a 9 to 5 Google. And one thing I like about Blue Sky, the way they do their link embeds. Like let me just do something here real quick. Let me go to profiles and /gear, and here's my Razor review. I'm going to repost this for no particular reason except to show you this functionality. But when you go to compose a reply, when you copy in a link, it gives you these two options down here: add link card, and it gives you the full link that you pasted in, or it gives you like the root URL. So like in this case /gear.com, and you can click on either one of these. And so I'm going to click on that. Now I've added this card. I can remove this text.
That is very cool.
That's a really neat implementation that I really like. So hey everybody. Fuck this goddamn keyboard. Anyway, that's a preview to another video that's coming up. Hey everybody,
or it could just be that you fat fingered it. But I'm just
in case you missed it, here's my full review of the most fun phone that I have reviewed this year. Which this year, unlike other years, has actually been a lot that I can pick from.
Right. True. I'm gonna fix the phone portion. There you
go. Yeah. Shut up. Tweet typos are my superpower.
That's right. I remember that used to be on your profile.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, and so like now I've posted that.
So I think the way to sort of sum this up, or talk about the space in general, whether it's a Mastodon, or it's T2, or it's Blue Sky, as an alternative to Twitter, and then eventually succeeding as a not just as a Twitter alternative, but just because the platform has something to offer unique, or maybe the community's better, is going to have a lot to do with investor, I guess actually with I'm guessing both of those companies are private right now, right? And so maybe it's just it's getting ads or some way so that they're it's sustainable beyond like the original capital that they raised, and a lot of that has to do with the the community amount. Maybe it's the amount of people that are using it. I mean, it's engagement. It's all of those things.
Right.
Um, and so I mean, it really does feel like Blue Sky definitely has the leg up right now, but you just never know.
You don't know, and yeah, I get the feeling that T2 is like T2 is kind of like the web OS of alternative social
Yeah,
media right
yeah,
now. Like a lot of people are on it, a lot of people really really like it, but it's probably not going to live very long.
yeah. I hate to say that, but it's true. Yeah.
I'm going to enjoy the ride as long as I can. And by the way, this might have just nuked any possibility of having them on the show, because I
Well,
have reached out to the founders of T2 to see if they'd be interested in hopping on
I
the
would say
podcast
that
to talk about it.
any attention to the platform. It's like any what is the saying? Any media attention is good attention,
No
or
such thing as bad
that's
press.
bad press. There we go. So there you go.
So
And we're certainly not hating on T2.
no,
We're
no, no,
just looking
definitely
at the
not.
realities of the situation.
I would love
So
for T2
me too.
to take off and
Me too.
like become super more popular. And it kind of seems like I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I would say that it's very likely. It doesn't look like it's trending in that particular direction at the moment. So no, that's not true at all. I would say that Blue Sky has more mind share right now,
Right.
and that seems to be kind of a determining factor as to what's going to live and what's going to die. But but at the same time, I should point out that T2 has shown a lot of growth, consistent growth through the time that I've been on it.
Mm-hmm.
You and I, like I said, we both got on when there were less than 1,000 people, and that was a month ago,
Something
month
like
and a
that.
half ago,
A
maybe
couple
something like
months, I
that.
think, but yeah, not
So,
long ago.
like,
Oh, the
they've
growth is
grown.
definitely there.
They've grown by a factor of 9 since we got on.
Right.
So, that's a good thing. And I like that's my personal. I'm personally hoping that T2, ends up attracting, bigger names and, stuff like that. But we'll just have to see what
There's a
happens.
lot that has to happen for either of
Any
these
social media
platforms.
network.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it may be that who knows, maybe T2 gets acquired by somebody. You could still say the same thing with
Yeah.
Blue Sky.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm going to say is I'm with you. And I'm not hating on Mastodon, but it is incredibly hard to find a community, and then that you really, that if you're coming from Twitter, that most people are on.
Right.
And again,
Right.
to find people outside of the server that you're on, and then the onboarding experience, at least with the official Mastodon stuff,
Was
is
not
kind of,
awesome.
it's not great. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
But
I
at
mean
least it
it
has an
is.
app.
Yeah, that's very true. And I tell you one thing that they do have going for them is that several really good apps, especially for iOS, have come out.
Third party apps.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember that. The one that Ivory, which is made by the developer that made Tweetbot.
Ah, okay.
So when Tweetbot died, I actually think before Tweetbot even died, that the developer was already just starting to be active on
Mastodon.
Mastodon.
Okay.
And it's a if you love TweetDeck, it at its foundation feels very much the same, just
Oh, cool.
adapted for Mastodon. So what I was going to say is that's one thing that I really hope that, especially T2, if they don't have the resources to, and I actually told this to Sarah, like because she asked me, Sarah from T2, when I was getting verified, she towards the end of our conversation asked, so are there things that you want? And I know I was not the only one that said this, because they have said this is one of their most requested feature, but it is a mobile app.
Ah,
And
okay. Yeah.
so what I said is to her is, even if you guys don't have the resources to develop your own mobile app right now, I mean your mobile site is good in
Open
terms
up
of
your
its usability,
APIs.
but that's exactly what I said. Create an API that people can tie into, and please, for the love of God, don't charge for it. I didn't say
Right.
that,
Right.
but because even if it's not someone like the developer of Tweetbot, there will be somebody that makes a third party client for it.
Right.
And
So
right, and that just again encourages discuss, because once you have an app in the App Store, then it can be discovered, and people that might
Mhm.
not necessarily know about T2, for example, might, you know, be brought into it by the
Yeah,
just having that availability elsewhere. So,
exactly.
honestly, I hope that Blue Sky does a similar thing in terms of opening it up to third party clients. Although their client is not bad.
It's not bad. Yeah. All right. Well, we have gone over an hour, and so we should go ahead and put a bow on this thing. One last note: I discovered via T2, Elon Musk claims Twitter login requirement as a temporary emergency measure, as several hundred organizations were scraping data extremely aggressively. So the whole needing to be logged in to see a tweet thing apparently is also temporary, but we'll see. Anyway.
Right. Right.
So I think I would think we've given a pretty comprehensive look
Mhm.
at the two different Twitter alternatives that are out there. I mean, there are a bunch, but
I
those
was
are
going
the
to say
two
the ones
that
that you and I
yeah,
are actively on and using
right,
and engaged with, and
right. So if you want to talk to us, find us on
find us on there.
T2 or on Blue Sky, and if you want an invitation for either one, I guess adam@dow.org. just ask, I guess. Or what is it? Contact at benefitofadow.com or something like that. I
Or Clifton
honestly
M.
don't know.
Thomas
Clifton M. Thomas. There you go.
Benefit of the Dowd.
No, Clifton at Benefit of a
Is it
Doubt.
is it Clifton?
It's just Clifton. Yeah.
Okay. Clifton
So
at benefitofthedowd.com.
there you go. So if you want an invite to either of those platforms, we'll happily bring you in. But for now, that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Please consider subscribing to this podcast if you enjoyed it. And if you really enjoyed it, I would love it if you would write a review for the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, click on that subscribe button so you can be notified of new episodes and reviews as they drop. And if you want some early access, jump onto Patreon at patreon.com/benefitofthedowd. By the way, patrons, you can have all the invitations you want. So you just ask. I'd like to thank co-producer Cliff for all of his hard work behind the scenes and for jumping on and talking about all the Twitter alternatives that are out there. But most of all, and as always, I would like to thank you for listening and for giving us the benefit of the Dowd.